warm welcome to the special lecture series of NPTEL. And under this series, starting today, we are going to have a separate series of lectures under the overall banner of innovation and entrepreneurship in a post-COVID world. I'm Professor Partha Pratim from IIT Kharagpur, and I would deliver the first of this series of lectures to you students to introduce what we are going to talk about in the coming lectures. There will be 16 of them in total. Every afternoon from 5 to 7, we will have 2 lectures each for the next 8 days, including today. So welcome to this program. Welcome to this series of lectures on innovation and entrepreneurship in a post-COVID world. Now, in the introductory lecture, I will talk, my title of the presentation is Innovation and Entrepreneurship, the Cure as well as Vaccine for COVID-19. At the outset, I must remind you that please do not think literally when I talk about cure and vaccine. Do not think that I have that magic, that panacea in me to give you a medical cure or medical vaccine for the COVID-19 situation, COVID-19 virus. But I'm talking about a cure and a vaccine of the situation that we, as a whole, particularly the engineering entrepreneurs, can create for the humanity. Now, to start the discussion, let me just remind you all, ourselves, that actually COVID, it appears that COVID suddenly happened. Coronavirus suddenly came and started to hit the humanity, and we were all significantly taken by a surprise. But that's not the case. It, of course, does not matter to look back now that we had warnings enough, but it's good to be reminded so that we don't make that mistake again. So world has been at risk. Warnings were given. I've just put together a couple. One that came quite a few years back, actually about 5 years back, from one of the biggest techno entrepreneurs of our times, Mr. Bill Gates, the founder of, co-founder of Microsoft. Very interestingly, Bill Gates in his TED Talks on 3rd April 2015 talked about the risks of the next outbreak, and he highlighted that it's not the nuclear war. If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war, Mr. Gates observed. No missiles, but microbes. Well, the world heard him with a lot of respect, and then probably kind of did not take him that seriously. After all, he is considered a technocrat and not a microbiologist. I'll fast forward a couple of years and go to September 2019, and we have a very relevant, very important personality, Dr. Harlem Brundtland, former Prime Minister of Norway and former Director General of WHO, addressing in WHO reports a world at risk, saying that disease thrives in disorder and has taken advantage of outbreak and all that. But most importantly, he observes that a global pandemic on that scale could be catastrophic, creating widespread havoc, instability, and insecurity. The world is not prepared. No word of wisdom could be more appropriate. But even in 2019 September, did we pay heed to his observations? Time kept rolling, and I would just kind of play a small animation video trying to show you. This is from BBC News, from YouTube that I have taken it. That shows starting from kind of later half of January till about 18 June, that's about last week, how when this actual virus has struck, how things have started moving. So if you keep focusing on this, you can see how the numbers are going up. These are the early days. We are in February. Things are moving. And as we all initially thought that this is something which is happening in China, you can see 80,000, 90,000, we cross March and other countries start coming up, Italy, US, Spain, US starts taking over everyone else. And still in India, we are in April, we are in the middle of a strong lockdown, we are feeling safe. And in India, we have been thinking about, well, possibly India has been able to escape the onslaught, at least significantly, but then the numbers just started happening. You can see things going up and up and up. US has crossed 2 million and we are approaching almost 500,000, right? So the warnings ignored earlier, the coronavirus has actually struck. Now the question is, this is certainly not, I'm not an expert of biology, I'm not an expert of medical science, I'm not an expert of virus, but I'm more a technocrat. So what are we talking about here? Now, in this context of having embraced, without a choice, this deadly virus, we have been trying to, we have been hoping against hope that we follow the right kind of lockdown and the practices and all that, which at least India did initially, very religiously for nearly 2 months, that this virus will lose its sting and go away. But over time, we have started realizing, and these are again special reminders from people who understand. This is coming from Dr. David Nabarro, Special Envoy of WHO, who has clearly said Corona is here to stay. So we have to learn to live with the virus. We have to learn to do business in the presence of Corona. We have to have all our social relations while the Corona does not go away. It cannot be wished away. But that means that when we talk about Corona, while initially it was kind of a significant issue, significant dimension for medical practitioners, the health services people, the biologists, the computational biologists, and so on, it actually is creating a kind of an impact on the economy so that it affects everyone, it affects at every level of our life. So it will be appropriate to take a quick look at what has been happening at the economics of the world of India because of all this that's happening in terms of the coronavirus. So this is some of the global economic impact. Nobody still can understand what's going to be the impact. I think a significant section of analysts are thinking that whatever projections are talking of, probably they all will get superseded. But as of now, the World Bank has predicted a 3.2% decline in India's GDP growth rate, but it may be even slower than that. You can see different country-wise, different projections of percentage of economic growth comparatively between three scenarios. The deep blue being when there's no coronavirus, then there's a baseline in terms of, okay, there is a coronavirus, but that's something that can be controlled. And then this light blue, which is the risk scenario of the pandemic that we are actually living through. And you can see that for several of the countries, this actually means that the growth is going to be quite significantly negative. So there's a substantial impact at a global level. So when that happens, naturally, there are several impacts in terms of India as a country, however, big, however robust we may be. And this is just another chart showing some of the sector-wise significant impact in India. You can see the worst affected, possibly all of us know, that is the hospitality industry, the airlines, hotel, when the output has gone down by mammoth, huge 70 to 75%, auto and advanced industries 50 to 60% down, construction 50% down, textile 50% down, a mainstay of Indian economy also. Freights, all these you can see a whole lot of them. I mean, except for marginal impact in pharmaceuticals or telecom, because these are sectors where, as we have had impact because to the normal activities due to the coronavirus, but at the same time we have had some unprecedented parallel development because of this lockdown, because of this alternate ways, because of prevention of this virus and so on and so forth. But overall, as you can see, there's been a very significant sector-wise impact already being seen in India. Naturally, when this happens, this kind of an impact happens on both ways, whether it is in terms of on the demand side, that naturally economy goes down, means the demand is slowing down. People are doing much less activities. You are not stepping out of home. You are not having your social functions. You are not going to mall. So all kinds of demand in terms of, I mean, naturally you are not traveling, so there's no transportation. You are much slowdown in terms of your economic, your educational consumption and so on. So variety of these are, I mean, there are certain specific numbers given here. This is from a very solid report that I found done by KPMG it was published sometime in May, and which showed with a detailed analysis as to how the demand side is going cooler and cooler, and it's getting impacted. And that's not the end of it. Even the supply side, I mean, even where you have demand, and are you being able to bridge up the economy by doing enough kind of supply? You need a whole lot of sanitizers to be done, several of these health support systems, PPEs to be done. Whole lot of things that you can do, that you need to do, is also getting constrained because of supply side impact. And if I look into India, one of our major supplier of raw materials is China, which has been significantly impacted itself because of COVID. So there's out of the total imports here, 13.7%. Lot is from China. I mean, I'm not specifically going into the other factors that is also affecting. Due to our different political relationships with China, we are also getting affected further in the supply side due to supplies of raw materials from China. But even if we leave that aside, there's a major impact because of the slowdown in terms of the China's own economic ability to supply. Naturally, the fallout of demand side slowdown, supply side slowdown is immediately in terms of jobs in India. India is a huge manpower economy. So for us, it is very, very important that we keep our jobs alive. And exact estimates are still, I'm sure, being worked out on a regular basis. But it's, kind of the current estimate is about 1.22 crore. I'm sorry, it's about 12 crore, that is 122 million who have lost their jobs. And that a significant part is in the small trade laborers, fairly significant number in terms of salaried worker, self-employed who have lost jobs in crores. So you can think of what has been the impact in terms of, like these are the numbers in terms of the informal workers who are in the non-agricultural sector. That's the top 5 states which account for that. There's been very significant impact in this way in terms of jobs in India at multiple different levels. I will not go through each and every point and each and every slide that I have here. You can always refer to these later on. The whole presentation will be available and you can use it for when you take your quiz at the end of the course for certification. You can always make use of these. But the point that I'm trying to drive is there has been a very significant impact in terms of the loss of jobs and nothing in view in terms of how we can recover from that. And most significantly, at times when such things happen, they are temporal. It's kind of a temporal glitch, happens for a couple of months, goes away. But as you must have started realizing is if COVID type of condition continues and there's an overall slowdown, impact on the demand, impact on the supply, as well as the overall very slow and restricted activity, then this is not a temporal glitch. This is going to stay on for a long. So the question that leads us to that, well, I mean, though we are talking about post-COVID, I mean, would we really have something called post-COVID? I mean, people have talked about BC being re-Christianed as not being before Christ, but being before COVID. But is there really a post-COVID? Is it that, or it is kind of a co-COVID? The new normal, you try to learn to live with that and learn to define your economy in terms of the new norms that you adopt to. So the immediate question is what could be the direct, science, I mean, from the perspective of science, it could be the real stopper for this crisis. Certainly, would we medically have a cure for this virus? Would we medically have a vaccine for this virus? Now, the facts are not, supporting our expectations. Every morning, people expect. Every morning, I wake up thinking that there will be a magical announcement coming on NDTV and other channels that a cure finally has been completely established, a vaccine has been found. But it looks like after almost 500,000, I mean, we are slowly reaching the point where almost 500,000 people have lost their lives due to COVID. There's no cure, no reliable cure. I mean, a lot of experiments being done, but no reliable cure is in view. We cannot say that soon enough we'll have a drug to actually treat corona in a reliable way. When it comes to vaccine, it is even further away. It is a lot of hopeful results, trials are being talked of, but if you really think about a vaccine which can influence the progress of the disease by building up proper resistance in people, it is not likely to be available at least sometime in 2021, but most people are thinking that it will be much later than that. So, I mean, you can see what different, very leading people in this field, the WHO chief scientist, emergencies director, I mean, how they have reacted to this. So, which means that we cannot rely on a medical science solution alone to this pandemic because the economy cannot wait. If we restrict ourselves significantly for the need of constraining the spread of the virus, which is medically certainly the thing to do, we are in the process killing our economy to the extent that we really cannot afford that. The economy cannot wait for the time that you need to find the cure and the vaccine. So on this hour, what do we fall back on? We fall back on the very age-old wisdom that necessity is the mother of invention. We have to find out newer ways of doing things. We have to find out, based on the necessity, how do we have new ways to intervene in the existing practices and processes? How do we innovate in terms of technological and other solutions? How do we incubate ideas and bring up new entrepreneurs? And this series of lectures that we are talking about here, that I'm kind of introducing to you right now, is all intended towards this requirement. So the point that you will question is it just my wishful thinking that, well, we can innovate, we can bring up newer ways of, I mean, innovation has been around for quite a few years. We have been in focus in India over last 5-6 years in multiple different programs and so on. Entrepreneurship is being encouraged. But is there a reason to think that we have the coronavirus, we have the pandemic coming up, and immediately we will have a surge in terms of what more we can innovate? Well, I mean, this is not only my wishful thinking, but some of the substantive facts that I can present to you. It's been around 2.5 to 3 months that we have been in the core of this this necessity, core of this problem, And you can see that people have made innovations in terms of low-cost toaster-sized ventilator. There was a huge cry, hue and cry about ventilators not being there all across the world. And now in India itself, you would have seen a number of innovations in terms of ventilators of different capacities, different size, different cost, and different principles in which they work. Indian Railways coaches have been turned into isolation wards to make the immediate requirement of having different kinds of isolation and separation of people that you needed to create. The full body protection suite has been developed by DRDO using adhesives that are typically used for submarine sugar mills, have been repurposed to develop, manufacture hand sanitizers. Digital fintech solutions have been innovated with. We have seen several small scale robo delivery services for collection of samples in the COVID wards, dispensing food, medicines, and all that. So these are just examples. These are not comprehensive, nor my idea is to kind of make a compendium of all innovation that have started happening. But what I'm trying to bring to you students is the fact that COVID brings a culture of innovation which is going to be at the forefront as the business of the future. So that's what we need to focus on. That's what we need to learn about. That's what we are really concentrating in terms of this particular lecture series of which I'm making the introduction. So as I go into the next part of my presentation, which will be analyzing some of the sectors, just before doing that, let me briefly introduce the kind of the people who are behind this lecture series program. So it's basically three agencies, I should say, or three organizations which bringing it to you: the RMSoEE, NPTEL, and NDLI. So I'll quickly spend a couple of minutes on these organizations. So RMSoEE is a school, Rajendra Mishra School of Engineering Entrepreneurship at IIT Kharagpur. This is more than 10 years old, and its focuses on innovation and entrepreneurship in terms of engineering solution, product development, product innovation, product management, and stuff like that. Its vision is to make provide leadership in engineering entrepreneurship to inculcate innovation and entrepreneurship amongst young Indians all across. There are several interesting programs that this school run in terms of dual degree master's program, where a student can do a BTech in a parent department, could be agriculture, could be mining, could be computer science, and do an MTech in engineering entrepreneurship to learn specifically how to provide effective solutions. Or there are several students who really do not want to wait for an additional year to get a master's separately, can focus on micro specialization, which are bundle of courses that you could take as you go along with your undergraduate program to get a micro specialization where you learn specifically about engineering, entrepreneurship, and innovation. Of course, there are research programs having doctoral students and Master of Science or research by Masters by Research kind of programs and so on. The second organization who is helping us, that channel on which we are on, all of you I'm sure know NPTEL, National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning, very well, led by IIT Madras and supported by several other IITs, and the program of the MHRD, which is the distribution channel for this series of lectures. The third is a very unique program of Ministry of Human Resource Development, which is called the National Digital Library of India. This is a unique digital library which has been around for last about 5 years. You can go to Google and get a view of that. It is all open and free collection of about 3 crore contents, and anybody can go anytime and make use of those contents on the web or through mobile apps on Android and iOS. And NDLI is supporting this lecture series, and these lectures, all videos and associated reading material would subsequently continue to be available on NDLI's platform. So these three organizations having come together is giving you this opportunity for learning on innovation and entrepreneurship, specifically for tuning ourselves to the Atmanirbhar Bharat that you have seen the government has already given a call for. We have realized very timely that now is the time that we need to innovate, we need to do things on our own to cut down on the impact on the demand side, to make up for the impact on the supply side, and actually build up a self-reliant India or Atmanirbhar Bharat. So this is the Atmanirbhar Bharat program. And as I will not go into the Atmanirbhar Bharat discussions right in this presentation. Some of my colleagues subsequently through the different lectures will focus on different aspects of this program in context of innovation and entrepreneurship in different sectors like healthcare, like energy, like financial technology, supply chain, and so on. What I would like to kind of wind up in the next couple of minutes with is to just bring to you the fact that if you look into different sectors of the economy, then because of this pandemic specifically, we all are being faced with several challenges. And very interestingly, coupled with those challenges are coming a whole lot of opportunities to work with. So I just, this is again not exhaustive, and of all the different sectoral challenge and opportunity compilation that exists in this presentation, I'm not going to talk about all of them, all of the points specifically, but these are more representative, and you could use them subsequently for your better understanding of what is the need of the hour, because that's very important. So let's say if we are talking about agricultural technology and agribusiness, ag tech and agri business. So there are several challenges that are there on the left hand side, as you can see. I mean, some of these challenges, of course, are not specific to this pandemic, but they have got amplified because of the pandemic, like lack of financial security. That's a long-term problem of Indian agriculture. There's not much backup. So when you have these kind of crises, these sectors very easily slip into a very crisis situation, and people related to this sector, a large number of agriculture, people who rely on agricultural livelihood, naturally they go into that very crisis region of their livelihood, earning, and so on. So there are some of these big challenges: poor storage, transportation, low technology input. We use archaic technology for several of our agricultural production. But at the same time, on the right, as you can see, and you'll see this very typically in almost all sectors, that while you talk about challenges, if you have a few, the opportunities are really also plenty, because with this, it's not to be misunderstood that the opportunities immediately happened in most cases in the last 3 months because you had the pandemic. Opportunities in many cases, like the challenges, also existed before COVID happened. But it is our realization, coming face to face with the opportunities and realizing that these opportunities that existed and need to be exploited for better economy, that realization has dawned more with this pandemic falling on ourselves. So we have, in terms of agribusiness, we have location specificity, market-centric product design, direct market linkage, training of technology, supply chain interventions. These are a whole lot of opportunities that exist that can improve our agricultural production, that can improve our mechanisms, that can ensure better compliance to following of the restrictions that COVID needs us to follow, and so on. I'll just flip over to something which we have been doing. So education and technology, remote, these are challenges. Remote online education has been around for ages, but we always thought, well, it will only supplement, it can't be the mainstream, it can't be the mainstay. And come COVID, now Now even the school kids are attending classes online. I mean, I'm I'm in a way impressed to see that a lady who helps us in our household, her daughter, is actually attending classes from her school in a village over a smartphone, which somehow she has managed to provide. So the challenges have been scaled to a different extent, but at the same time, the opportunities, the belief that this can be done, the innovative methods of online assessment has become a, a very necessary thing to settle today. We are not being able to conduct examinations. So there's a huge opportunity for the technology to come in here and give us solutions for how do you do online assessment. NPTEL had to cancel their last round of courses, final examination, and therefore the mandatory certification, because no online mechanism for taking proctored examination was existing. So these are all different huge opportunities, not only in terms of like National Digital Library of India itself is a big responder to the opportunities in education and technology. In one of the later on lectures, I will talk specifically about that as well. But these are some of the aviation. I mean, aviation, we know, I mean, aviation has had challenges. Poor sector, I mean, which has got very, very badly impacted, whether it's loss of jobs, pay cuts, health issues of passengers, crew, social distancing, cost affordability, whole of the economic model. Aviation, in the domestic aviation, was on a very high steep rise in India. So there was a major price war, and price had already come down to a very low. Now in this, kind of flying almost does not exist kind of a scenario, airlines cannot come back and raise their ticket prices substantially. They will lose even more business. But with the existing ticket prices, not a viable proposition. Whole lot of challenges, and the moment you have that, there's a whole lot of opportunities. Where are airlines losing a huge amount of money? It's in terms of leasing of aircrafts. Indigo, for that matter, I'm not presenting direct data, but Indigo's big flight of aircrafts are significantly leased. They are not owned. So even though they are not flying, the leasing money has to be given. And these models have to get relooked into in view of all these pandemics stuff happening. So those are significantly financial modeling, fintech opportunities coming up. There are opportunities in terms of logistics being managed with far better augmented and virtual reality and robotics and safety, not only in terms of flying safety, but the general health safeties to be looked at. All those, aviation is a sector which is beaming with challenges and opportunities. MSME, this is Atmanirbhar Bharat's core pitch stake that, make more and more things at a small scale, at a local scale. You would recall that while we got our freedom, and there was a strong vision of Gandhiji that we will have to be around our clusters, we will have to be around our villages, we have to produce things in the small, and then over a period of time we have impressed the corporate very significantly, neglecting the small micro, that marginal sector, neglecting the household development of industry. So this brings in that factor. Well, it does make a lot of sense. I mean, work from home, it's not only just a spirit, but work from home is indeed what everybody needs to do. And that not only applies to working for others from home, but actually it means that building up enterprises around in small scale around your home. I mean, I've put some direct challenges and opportunities, but if you look through these sectors, you can see that even in philosophical terms, there is a major change that is dawning on us in terms of the challenges that need to be innovated against and the opportunities that are opening up for us. Healthcare obviously has a lot of challenges and opportunities. I'll cut it short now. Supply chain interventions. We have a very renowned professor of India, the director of NITI, Professor Manoj Tiwari, who will talk specifically on this sector in one full lecture. I'm looking forward to that. Manufacturing. These are all different sectors where you have a lot of, and of course, fintech, financial technology. These are all different sectors in which you are going to have a lot of these requirements of innovation and entrepreneurship. And that's what we are trying to focus on. So the innovation and entrepreneurship, the cure as well as vaccine for COVID-19, what I started talking about, introducing you to the series of lectures. To summarize, I would like to say that, remember, innovation has always been talked about. Innovation is talked about as a recipe for success. You innovate and you can do it. Bill Gates became Bill Gates because he could innovate. Steve Jobs became Steve Jobs because he could innovate. So he always said that thinking out of the box is praised as a virtue. That differentiates if you're the best and compared to the others who are better. Entrepreneurship is that rare quality, ability to take calculated risk as against incalculable opportunities. It's just not the risk. You do not just go blindly and take risk. You are taking risk against an estimated very huge opportunity. So this is the general scenario. And some people have chosen to be in that. Some people have chosen to be staying away from that in the safety of jobs they do for the government, the jobs they do for the big MNCs, corporate, and so on. But think about it. In this situation, we are thrown upon into COVID, and all these notions start toppling. Innovation is now no more just a recipe for success. It still is, but it is a necessity for survival. Unless you can innovate a new way to recover your economy, whether it is Atmanirbhar Bharat or anything plus. Unless if you continue to think within box, you are serving yourself with a death sentence. So that's the kind of things that we'll have to keep reminding ourselves. Entrepreneurship is no more a matter of choice for the risk addict and the risk averse. It is just the way around. So keeping all these from the School of Rajendra Mishra, School of Engineering Entrepreneurship, the whole faculty came together and felt that it is required at this point to launch a series of lectures to explain this background, these changes. It's not only that you need to innovate and become entrepreneur, but the way you innovate, the way you pursue entrepreneurship also is going to change because of this economic, the whole economic process. So that is the genesis of this whole thought process of this series of lectures. I hope that you all will benefit from that, and we really enjoy going through these lectures. I will next have my colleague, Dr. Mrigank Sharad, who is with us in the Rajendra Mishra School of Engineering Entrepreneurship. He's been the prime mover and coordinator of this course, and Dr. Sharad will spend the next couple of minutes, 15-20 minutes, talking about specifically this program as to what are the different lectures and what are the dimensions that we are talking about. I wish you all the very best in terms of attending these lectures, and I really wish that you benefit from this, and in turn, you can innovate and become entrepreneurs in the right way to help the economy at this very hour of need. Over to Dr. Sharad.
I thank Professor Partha Pratim Das for initiating the course and giving such a wonderful introduction, giving us the motivation and the objective behind this course. So now I'm going to give you a walkthrough through the content of the course. I'm going to give you the description of the major modules that we have in this course and the motivation behind them, their significance and importance in the present scenario. And following that, I will give you some brief outlines about the procedure for registration and the certification process that we have for this course. So those who are interested in participating in the certification process and the corresponding tests, etc., we will share the details for that. So let us start through the outline of the course. So here I am Mrigank Sharad, an assistant professor in Rajendra Mishra School of Engineering Entrepreneurship, IIT Kharagpur. I am glad to be the coordinator of this course, and I am glad to basically be able to help the school in organizing this course. And of course, with me, we have all the faculty members from our school, as well as from other departments in the institute who are helping us in conducting this. So let us go through the package that we have for you in this course. So this is the overall course schedule that has been shared with all of you through our online platform, through NPTEL, and also through IIT social media platform. So here, this is the list of topics that has been shared, and I will give you a quick walkthrough through this and describe the rationale behind the topics that have been selected as a part of this course. So we have just gone through the introduction given by Professor Das, and I hope the motivation and the background behind this course has been made very, very clear. Let me go through the other major modules. So here we have the first topic as macroeconomic effects and entrepreneurship in the post-COVID scenario. So understanding the macroeconomic effects on different sectors of the country, that is very important to be able to identify the problems, to be able to identify where are the gaps and how do we really proceed to address those through innovation and entrepreneurship. What is the problem with the GDP, why the rupee is falling, what sectors are suffering, what are the constraints related to new businesses, their finances. All that is going to be discussed in the macroeconomic lecture given by Dr. Prabha. Following that, Professor Manoj Mandal's lecture is going to set the stage for entrepreneurial motivation. So once we know that these are the major problems, these are the major issues, and not just a short-term glitch, but long-term issues, which are going to be around for maybe a couple of years. And of course, in future also, we have to be ready for such scenarios. It's not just a one-time effect. So for that, we have a lecture from Professor Manoj Mandal on entrepreneurial motivation. So here we are going to talk about why entrepreneurship can be a good solution for many of these issues, how entrepreneurial endeavors, how innovation mindset can basically help the nation in overcoming and countering some of these difficulties. So of course, we'll be looking at some of the major sectors and try to see how innovative solutions can be used to counter these effects. Next, we have a lecture on business model innovation by Professor Rambabu Roy. And here, because we have a very different scenario, that's the overall backdrop of COVID, we have many different sectors facing difficulties, and the overall conditions for starting a new business, getting finance, etc., has changed drastically. And therefore, there is a need for innovating the business model also. It's not just enough to be able to innovate on the product side or services side. We need innovation in the overall business process. How do we raise funds? How do we carry out our operations? How do we build team? How do we basically establish partnership? How do we take care of our supply chains? So all this is going to be part of business model, and this is also equally important as product development. So this is going to be discussed by Professor Rambabu Roy. Following that, a holistic picture of creating and growing new ventures in this post-COVID scenario, that is going to be discussed by Professor Manoj Mandal once again. So here we are going to get a bigger picture, like having a product solution and then having an appropriate business model. How do we merge these two and create a successful startup given the challenges, given the constraint in the post-COVID scenario? Following that, some of the aspects related to the impact of COVID on different aspects of businesses, like consumer behavior change, the change in business processes, and also the finances related to the small businesses. That is going to be discussed by Professor Bhaskar Thome. So again, these strategies are important. We need to understand how the consumer behavior is changing, how the purchase interest is changing, how the overall business processes, some of them may be moving online, some of them may require complete overhaul, some of them may be going contactless and paperless, some of the strategies related to marketing may be changing. So many of these things need to be adapted, they need to be renovated in order to make a business successful. So again, this is about making a startup idea really successful as a startup. Having an idea is good, having a product is good, but it is equally important to have the right kind of strategy to meet the needs of the hour. Following that, financial management, again a very crucial and very important topic. Finance is the core of a startup, and that is all about making the startup sustainable, profitable. So here, Professor Titas Bhattacharya is going to talk about short-term financial management. How do we deal with these risky situations? How do we deal with the crisis hour where the funding is going to be constrained? There are going to be a lot of challenges in managing the cash flow in the company. We are going to have constraints related to supply chain. Many of the customer segments, many of the revenue channels may get adversely affected. So we have to figure out the revenue channels as well. So there are a lot of challenges related to financial management of the startup, and that is what is going to be presented by Professor Bhattacharya. Following that, we have a number of lectures related to product innovations. We are going to have a lot of analysis, a lot of examples given from various sectors. So far, whatever I have discussed with you, they are regarding strategy. All these previous slides that I showed you, they were about strategies of evolving a successful business around a successful product, which is required in this hour. So how do we modify our strategies so that we can take a very useful product in this scenario to the market and make it profitable? So these are the strategies that I discussed. Now, next, we need to also basically have a good understanding of the sectors, like where there are strong innovation opportunities and where we can really invest our innovative ideas and come up with good solutions. So this is all going to be about requirement. So the first poster I'm showing over here is about Professor Basant Chakrabarty's lecture, which is on product innovation opportunities. So it's a general overview of different sectors, what kind of big opportunities are there for innovators, for startups to really exploit and come up with nice ideas. We have a very, very important topic by Professor Manoj Tiwari, who is a very eminent professor, renowned professor in this area of supply chain. Supply chains are getting disrupted all around the world. In India also, we have seen the Prime Minister talking about supply chain disruptions because of our dependencies on external sources, many times single point dependencies. And this has created a lot of havoc in many sectors, whether it is pharmaceutical industry, whether it is manufacturing industry, automobile industry, even agriculture. Even agriculture is suffering because export supply chains are disrupted, input supply chains are disrupted. So we need definitely a lot of rehauling, restructuring of the supply chain, and therefore we have this very interesting, very important session by Professor Tiwari. Following that, a very important area and a very exciting area. A lot of people these days are interested in AI and data science, one of the hottest area. And there we have seen already a lot of applications, a lot of very interesting applications coming up. We have seen application of robotics and drone already in the country. Police is using drones for monitoring and surveillance. In hospitals also, robots and drones are being used at some places. We are using medical imaging, very sophisticated, high-speed medical imaging for detection of COVID. And likewise, there are many examples, data-driven examples where we can have data-driven solutions for tracking people, for analyzing healthcare data. So all these are going to open up more opportunities in the post-COVID scenario. And we are going to look at many interesting applications, not only healthcare, but many other aspects as well. Administration, security, we may have many interesting applications related to production and manufacturing as well, where we have need of automation, etc. So this lecture is also going to be very, very important. This is by our former director, Professor Partha Pratim Partha Pratim Chakrabarty, who is also a very renowned faculty in this area. And in fact, he's leading the AI Center also at IIT Kharagpur, which is basically leading innovations in AI and data science in the country. Following that, we have a lecture on post-COVID business opportunities in healthcare. So this is going to be more specific about healthcare, and this lecture is about by Professor Rambabu Roy, who is an expert in data analytics and healthcare technology. So here we are going to talk about application of different strategies, whether it is data analytics and AI, whether it is equipments and gadgets, what kind of opportunities are present for technology intervention, business intervention in healthcare, which are going to be very critical at this. Next, we have a lecture by Professor Pranab Kumar Dan about frugal product engineering. So frugal product engineering means we have to innovate in a short time, and we have to innovate with limited resources, with limited funds. And that is the call of the hour, right? We have seen already so many examples coming up, right? For example, we have railways using its railway coaches for hospital cabins, right? They have converted their railway coaches into hospital cabins. So this is an example of frugal engineering. Whatever limited resources we have, in the limited time, we have to make use of those resources to come up with the best possible innovation, best possible services, best possible businesses. So here we are going to look into many such interesting examples which can be applicable in such crisis situation. So this is going to be about frugal product innovation. Following that, one of the very important sectors, which is agriculture. This is probably the only sector which never shut down, which never basically was shut down under lockdown. All the other sectors were probably shut down, but this is the only sector which was allowed to operate because food can never be shut down. This is the source of our food. But despite being so important, the people who are running this sector, our farmers, they are faced with huge number of difficulties, and therefore for them we need a lot of technology and business intervention so that the challenges related to finances, related to supply chain, related to infrastructure, related to production and efficiency can be resolved. So this is going to be addressed by Professor Mamoni Banerjee. Next, we have another very crucial sector, digital skills, and we are going to talk about innovation, education, and skills for digital economy. The digital economy is going to be gaining even more momentum. Digital payments, non-contact payments, fintech technology solutions, digital education, all those things are becoming more and more important. People have got the taste of these technologies in a much better way during this lockdown. So this is going to be further strengthened in post-COVID scenario as well. And there, what kind of training, what kind of skilling and education is required, what kind of product solutions are required, there we are going to discuss this with Dr. Chris Singh, who is the founder and CEO of SII. So he is going to share his expertise and his rich experience in this area. Following that, we are going to have the session on social entrepreneurship, where myself, along with Professor Das, is going to cover some very important topics in the social sector. Social sector definitely deals with people who are on the lower rung of the society, where we need business and technology interventions to address their needs, to address the gap. And there, it's not just about doing the social service like an NGO or relying on grants, relying on donations, but it is about making successful businesses, sustainable business out of it, while serving the society, while serving the community. So there are n number of sectors within social enterprises, very good examples that we'll be presenting, and is going to be very useful for people who have similar inclinations. And following that, we have the final section, which is about going local, and this is again about intervention in supply chain, where we can have local interventions and how we can bring in local production, local ideas, local technologies to strengthen our own internal supply chains so that we can really realize the goal of Atmanirbhar Bharat. So you saw that we have two sections of, I would say, I can divide the whole set of lectures in two broad categories. One is strategy-based lecture, which are talking about innovation strategies, talking about business model, financial strategies, supply chain management, etc. So this is about the strategy-oriented lecture. And the second part is about the opportunities-related lecture, which are going to present case studies, ideas in different sectors. So these are the two broad categories, and both of them are very important. One is for giving us information about strategies, and another one opportunities. And both are, of course, going to be, these two lectures are not going to be covered in the exact order that is given over here. The order may vary a little bit here and there, but structure point of view, this is how we have structured the course. One set of lectures for strategies, another set of lectures for opportunity. And finally, towards the end, I would like to briefly discuss about the certification. So we have the social media platform where we have all the information regarding the courses posted. If you go to the NPTEL Facebook page, for example, we have the lectures timings posted along with the YouTube link. We can use that for accessing the lectures. Also, we have posted the same information on IT Kharagpur's page as well. And there you can get the registration link. So you can see the registration link over here. And if you go to this form, you have this option of filling up the registration form. And this gives you an opportunity to enroll for certification program. So if you are attending this course for certification, it's important that you fill out this form. And by using this, we will be conducting an online test towards the end of the course, which will be done online. We'll be giving you a fixed slot for that. And also will be basically giving you a fixed duration and collecting your responses online. It will be based on automated evaluation, and you will be getting the scores. Based on the scores, we will have some qualitative grading, as mentioned over here: good, very good, and excellent. And we will basically, based on this score, we'll be providing you the digital certificates for the course. Along with that, we also have another component, which is about pitching. So we're going to have a pitch competition as well. And this is especially for those who are already working on startup ideas, or they may have some ideas on which they want to work in future. So if they want to participate in pitch competition, they can again fill out this form. And for them, again, we'll be delivering the guidelines through email. And this is for definitely a different certificate. This is for this is going to definitely give you some certificate for people who are having good ideas. We'll be recognizing them. And beyond that, we will have the option of involving them in our longer term programs. So those who are interested in working with IIT Kharagpur, those who are interested in connecting with Rajendra Mishra School of Engineering Entrepreneurship for long-term program, participating in future courses, mentorship program. We also have several opportunities related to startup acceleration, etc. So we can basically provide a lot of support for emerging startup ideas, help them do some hand-holding, give them some mentorship, also link them with some funding opportunities, etc. So for those cases, we have the pitch competition, and I eagerly look forward to a lot of entries in this. So with this, I'd like to close this session. And before we close, we have a small question answer session. So let us switch to the question answer session before we end. Here is my contact detail. If you have any doubt, if you have questions, queries, feel free to contact me. Here is my email ID. You can shoot me an email regarding any queries or doubts or the difficulties that you may face.
Okay. So do we have any questions to respond to?
So let me see. So I can just look at some of the questions that have come.
Okay.
So there is a question from Mr. Omkar Venkat. He is asking, how can we improve entrepreneurship focused research in PhD? So I would request Professor Das to respond to this.
Okay, Omkar, I mean, it depends naturally on specific research area. When you do PhD earlier, the focus of PhDs used to be only publication oriented. But certainly that's not the case anymore. We are focusing on actually creating solutions. So very often that students working on PhD work on solution-oriented innovation. Besides publications, they are looking for actually creating patents and contributing in that manner. So if you or anyone known to you is interested to discuss more about that, feel free to contact us. We will talk specifically. It depends specifically on which sector it is, which kind of problems and so on. But certainly it is quite possible, and it is happening very widely in several countries and need to happen in a bigger way in India, that we do create solutions along the way we get our PhD. Over to Mrigank. You are mute, Mrigank.
So there is another question by Mr. Moinak Das. So he's asking, many of the products that we are thinking about, they may lose relevance after the COVID scenario gets over. So how do we pivot them? How do we take them forward?
Yeah, yes, that's a common concern. But we'll have to see what I mean. It is unlikely, as I tried to give you the analysis, that it's unlikely that the COVID scenario goes away and you go back to the world you used to live in. That's not going to happen. It is going to be yet another new scenario. So it depends on the kind of solution that you provide. So there could be solutions which are just catering to the current time. Then they are kind of little bit myopic solutions. May have a lot of value for a short term business and short term enterprise. But I'm sure a lot of these will have a long term requirement. For example, let's say the way we do the interaction. None of us have done so much of video conferencing in our life altogether. And now as we are doing it, we are finding there are n number of requirements. So there's no board to write, there is no way to understand body language better and so on. So these are all opportunities to solve problems. And they are not, those requirements will not go away because you are not being forced to do VC all the time. You choose to do VC more often than you were doing earlier because this is changing the way you live, right? So that's kind of assessment will have to be there, but it depends on the specific product, of course. Yes, Mrigank?
So we'll take one more question. So Mr. Sujoy is asking, how do we convert invention into innovation? So I guess his question is, if we have a lab innovation coming out of an institute, how do we convert it into an innovation and really take it out? So
okay. Yeah. Shujay, this is a little bit technical in terms of what you call invention and what you call innovation. I mean, invention is something which has been done new and without maybe very immediate consequence in terms of the the business aspects of it, the value proposition aspect of it. So we said that Thomas Alva Edison invented the electric bulb, but for an innovation, you need not have to invent. The invention could have happened earlier, and you can still innovate to create value. Innovation is about creating value. So if you have invention, that does not immediately mean that it will have that kind of a value proposition. If it does not, then it's not, that may just stay an invention for a while as to something. So that's the reason you do patents and try to wait to for the time that you can actually monetize it, actually create that value. So these two are interrelated, but certainly trying to solve problems that have not been solved before is a key thing. In a way, so that somebody gets benefited is a key thing that's becoming far more important in the time today because we are getting frugal in every way. Thank you. I think Mrigank will have to close at this point.
So I think we have a lot more questions and we'll try to respond to some of the relevant ones and good ones through email also.
Yes.
So we are already up with this session and we are looking forward to your participation in just the next session, which is starting at 6 p.m. now. So we'll have the next session starting from 6 p.m. by Professor Mandal. So look forward to you joining that. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Professor Das, for a wonderful introduction and starting this course. And let us go ahead with the future sessions.
Thank you, Mrigank. Over to NPTEL for the next.